What appears on the surface may look like chaos, retreat, and collapse. Viral videos circulating on social media show frightened soldiers abandoning positions and damaged facilities across parts of Iran. To many viewers, these images suggest that the Iranian system is crumbling under pressure. But the reality inside the country may be far more complex. Behind the dramatic footage and headlines, another story is unfolding. A story of a state under immense pressure that is refusing to step away from the battlefield. In several regions, military infrastructure has been struck. Command centers were targeted, radar systems damaged, and logistical routes disrupted. Important commanders have been lost, and parts of the security network have clearly been shaken. For any nation, these would be serious blows. Yet despite these losses, Iran's military structure has not simply collapsed. Instead, what seems to be emerging is a rapid process of adjustment and restructuring. Within Iran's military hierarchy, emergency planning mechanisms were activated soon after the first wave of attacks. Institutions that have existed for decades, including the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, began reorganizing command structures and redistributing operational responsibilities. The deaths of senior figures created temporary gaps in leadership. However, those gaps were quickly addressed. New commanders stepped forward, strategic committees were assembled, and communication systems were restored using alternative networks. For a military establishment that has spent decades preparing for external pressure and asymmetric warfare, this kind of crisis response is not unfamiliar territory. Iran's military doctrine has long been designed around depth and redundancy. Leadership structures are layered in such a way that if one level is disrupted, another level can assume control. That system now appears to be functioning exactly as it was designed. Yes, there are videos showing individuals abandoning positions or expressing fear. In moments of extreme uncertainty, such reactions can occur in any military force around the world. But isolated scenes do not necessarily represent the condition of an entire system. Behind the scenes, military planners appear to be adapting their strategies to a rapidly changing battlefield. Rather than signaling collapse, the focus seems to be shifting toward long-term resistance. Iran's strategic planners have long understood that modern warfare is rarely decided in a single wave of strikes. Instead, conflicts often become contests of endurance, battles of adaptation, resilience, and the ability to continue functioning despite sustained pressure. That dynamic appears to be shaping the current situation. Even as some infrastructure has been damaged, efforts are underway to restore operational capability. Engineers and technical teams are working to rebuild communication networks and repair damaged radar systems. At the same time, alternative supply channels are being established to replace disrupted logistical routes. Another important change is the decentralization of command operations. By dispersing leadership and operational control across multiple locations, the military can reduce its vulnerability to future precision strikes. This strategy aligns closely with the defensive doctrines Iran has developed over decades. For years, Iranian military planners have prepared for the possibility of confronting technologically superior air forces. Their response has been to design systems that emphasize mobility, dispersal of assets, underground facilities, and decentralized command structures. Current events may simply be accelerating the implementation of those contingency plans. Another crucial factor shaping Iran's response is its ideological and political framework. The leadership has consistently framed conflicts with external powers not as short wars, but as long-term struggles that require patience, sacrifice, and resilience. Because of that mindset, the loss of individual leaders, even high-ranking ones, does not necessarily lead to surrender. History shows that states built around ideological resistance often continue fighting even after experiencing severe military setbacks. This principle appears to be guiding Iran's current response. Rather than forcing surrender, the strikes may actually be pushing the Iranian military establishment into a deeper phase of strategic recalibration. Reports suggest that new operational doctrines are already being discussed within military circles. These discussions reportedly focus on adapting to precision strike warfare, strengthening underground infrastructure, and expanding decentralized command networks. The goal is not simply to survive the current crisis. The goal is long-term strategic persistence. The regional dimension of the conflict adds yet another layer of complexity. Iran's security doctrine has never relied solely on centralized command structures within its own borders. Instead, it has long operated through networks and regional partnerships that extend far beyond a single headquarters or facility. Because of this structure, the broader strategic environment cannot be measured only by the destruction of specific sites. Even after heavy strikes, the wider system still exists. Inside Iran, authorities are also attempting to stabilize the domestic situation. Security institutions remain active in many areas, and efforts are being made to maintain order and prevent instability from spreading. At the same time, the leadership is projecting an image of determination rather than retreat. Official messaging emphasizes resilience, sacrifice, and the necessity of continuing the struggle regardless of the cost. For supporters of the system, the message is clear. Setbacks may occur, but surrender is not an option. From a geopolitical perspective, this moment may represent a turning point rather than an ending. Wars that begin with devastating strikes often evolve into prolonged strategic competitions. In many cases, nations under pressure adapt their military structures, develop new tactics, and eventually emerge with very different approaches to warfare. Iran may now be entering exactly that kind of phase. The battlefield picture may look dramatic, and the destruction is real. There is no denying that serious damage has occurred. But the key question is not whether losses have taken place. The real question is whether Iran's leadership intends to step back from the conflict. So far, the signals suggest the opposite. Despite losses, damaged infrastructure, and the shock of the attacks, Iran's leadership and military institutions appear to be preparing for a prolonged confrontation rather than an immediate retreat. What some observers interpret as the collapse of a system may instead be the beginning of a strategic transformation. And in modern warfare, that transformation can be just as decisive as the first strike.